I think learning, you sort of fall into two sectors, right? We have vocational, continuing education, training, things that we learn because we must. My next level of certification, for example. But there's that whole other spectrum of learning that's just driven by an innate curiosity, to want to understand, to want to know how things work, to want to know how I get better. And so while there's learning that we do because it's a construct of must, curiosity is a construct of want. And I think it maps back to that idea about desire. And so for me, learning is really about curiosity. I certainly know that it's the motivating factor for me in my compressed time. When I do have the opportunity to engage in something that I'm genuinely curious about, I'm going to find that time in my schedule more times than not. So I just think it's driven by a real need or a real want as opposed to need. Well, if you're talking about the workplace, it's imperative, right? Because we're dealing in an era of human capital unlike none other. I need not tell you this, it's your vocation to continue to keep people in their seats at work and to better their lot. So lifelong learning to me is just an absolute. It's almost a concept not even in need of definition. It's a default professionally. And if you're not attuned to that, then you're in a serious peril in this day and age. So I think lifelong learning professionally is a given. Personally, again, I don't know how much of that is born and how much of that is learned, but I think those people that are curious, that just have an unwavering desire to figure out the next thing or how things work, I think it's in your DNA. I would suspect that's where it comes from. But on a personal level, I'm just inherently curious. And people who are inherently curious tend to gravitate towards others who are, right? But for me, it's just been a default position. But anyone that you're talking to about their vocation or their profession, if you're not learning in your career today, and I generally mean, and it's some accelerated learning, you are in harm's way. End of story. End of story. We're in an information economy. It's simply an imperative. What I've learned recently, as I've been on this quest to try to understand the education business, two things. One, that the transformation is happening in light speed. So whether we like it or not, our children's children will certainly be getting their education in a very different formula than what we have gone through today. Absolutely different. I've also learned that despite a tremendous amount of bad news on cable news and a lot of other outlets, there's a wellspring of talent and enthusiasm and bright minds that are entering the marketplace, which gives me just sort of unbounded enthusiasm. I think prior to getting into this deeper dig, I probably digested a fair amount of the skepticism that the 2008 market meltdown and the economic challenges and all the other things that have been piled on the last few years. But being involved in the education space has given me new reason for hope and optimism. A lot of it is fueled by simply the bright young minds that I get to interact with, whether as a professor or throughout this process. And again, the other would be this absolute, unquestioned transformation that education is going through, and I think for the better. I really do. I genuinely think for the better. While there'll be a lot of pain and suffering along the way as the traditional platform gets overturned, the reality is we're bringing some of the economies of scale of the information economy to an old line business, if you will, that is in desperate need of transformation. And so I even look to that window with a high degree of optimism. These are all things, though, that I've learned in the last couple of years.
Hi, I'm Russel Sarder, Chairman and CEO of Netcom Learning. Netcom Learning's purpose is to promote the values of lifelong learning. The moment we think we know it all, we stop growing. Develop the passion for learning, be a lifelong learner.